What's going on, guys? This is Social Science Simplified, back with today's video. And in today's video, we are going to be doing my first way too early prediction for 2024. And tomorrow, the former president is expected to announce his candidacy for president in 2024. It looks like Joe Biden is going to run for the Democratic Party. No one's really announced yet, but I imagine that Joe Biden will run, and I imagine he'll be the front runner and the eventual nominee for the Democratic Party. It looks like the former president will be the Republican nominee. I would put money on him being the Republican nominee instead of Ron DeSantis, but you never know. I think personally it will be him or Ron DeSantis, and we're going to be doing a ton of different matchups here just to kind of show the spread of the field here and how it would look. But Donald Trump is expected to announce his candidacy for president tomorrow. So in this scenario, Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee and Donald Trump is the Republican nominee, which, to be completely honest, is, in my opinion, the most likely scenario for 2024. It would be the first rematch since the 1956 presidential election. That's a little fun fact for you. And now, getting into the video, we're going to start with the safe states. So, the safe states for the Democratic Party: California, Oregon, Washington, Hawaii, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Maine's 1st Congressional District, that electoral vote, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and then one more, and that is Colorado. And the reason why I think Colorado would be a safe state, you saw incumbent governor Jared Polis win re-election in Colorado this year by 16 points. The state of Colorado has been trending towards the Democratic Party in recent elections, and the Republican Party in the state that it is now, where it's Trump's Republican Party, has really pushed Colorado more to the left. The voters of Colorado have been voting more Democratic since Donald Trump got involved in politics and became the face of the Republican Party. So if Donald Trump were to end up in a rematch against Joe Biden in 2024, I believe that Colorado would go to Joe Biden by a safe margin of victory. It went to Joe Biden by around 13 points in 2020. I believe he would expand that margin in 2024 regardless, but especially if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. And now moving on to the safe Republican states: Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, South and North Dakota. Nebraska's at-large electoral votes: Nebraska's 3rd District electoral vote, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and that is it. And now moving on to the likely electoral votes, once again, starting with the Democratic Party: Minnesota, New Hampshire, Maine's at-large electoral votes, New Mexico, and Virginia. And these are all states and electoral votes, in the case of Maine, that went to Joe Biden by 5 to 15 points in 2020. And on average, I'd say in between 5 and 12 points in 2020. And I believe he would expand those margins a little bit in 2024, especially if Donald Trump is his opponent. But I believe these are likely Democratic states. I don't believe these will really be competitive. I believe you'll see both parties invest money in these states, but at the end of the day, I believe these are going to be likely Democratic states, meaning somewhere in the range of like 5 to 15 points. And probably closer to 7 or 8 points in the case of most of these states. And now moving on to the likely Republican states. And I'm going to start with the states that will be less than 15 points but won't necessarily be competitive. So those will be states like Montana, Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska's 1st Congressional District, and Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District went to Joe Biden by around 7 points in 2020, and I believe he'd win by a similar margin in 2024. So that is another likely Democratic electoral vote. So now moving on to the Republican likely electoral votes. Once again, I'm still going over the states and congressional districts electoral votes that won't necessarily be competitive, but they'll be won by the Republican nominee with less than a 15% margin of victory. And another one of those states, Alaska. Although Alaska could theoretically be competitive, I don't necessarily see it as competitive. A state like Indiana, a state like Mississippi. And now moving on to the likely Republican states that I believe will be somewhat competitive, but at the end of the day, I believe they're going to go to Donald Trump or the Republican nominee regardless, but they will be competitive. You're going to see both parties invest money here. You're going to see polls show either candidate winning, and they will be competitive, but at the end of the day, I believe these are going to be likely Republican states. So Maine's 2nd Congressional District went to Donald Trump by around 10 points in 2020, probably similar situation in 2024. Ohio and Iowa each went to Trump by 8 points in 2020. Once again, similar situation in 2024, although I believe you will see both parties invest money in these states. South Carolina is a bit on the edge of the competitive spectrum here, but when you look at it, I believe South Carolina could theoretically be competitive, and I believe you're going to see the Democrats spend a little bit of money here, but at the end of the day, it went to Donald Trump by 12 points in 2020. Once again, I expect it to be a likely Republican state in 2024. And then moving on, Florida. I believe Florida is going to be a likely Republican state in 2024. Florida has been trending to the right, and Donald Trump won by around 3 points in 2020. And I believe he'd expand that margin of victory in 2024. The Democrats have not been performing well in Florida, and especially after last Tuesday when Ron DeSantis and Marco Rubio both won their respective elections by more than 15 points. This is just further cemented in my mind that Florida is going to be a likely Republican state in 2024. Once again, I believe you're going to see the Democrats spend money there, but I believe it's going to be a likely Republican state. And now moving on to the lean states. And these are states that are going to be won by 1 to 5 points by either party. And starting off with the Democratic ones, I believe these are going to be Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona. Joe Biden won the state of Nevada by around 2 points in 2020, and I believe he'll win by around 2 to 5 in 2024. I'd say he'll win by probably 2 or 3. Arizona, Joe Biden carried the state of Arizona by less than a point in 2020. However, I believe with Donald Trump on the ballot and Joe Biden being his opponent, having that rematch, I believe that Arizona will go to Joe Biden and the Democratic Party by over a point in 2024. I believe Joe Biden will win Arizona by around 2 points in 2024. Michigan, Joe Biden carried by around 2 points in 2020. And in 2024, I believe he'll probably carry it by around 4 points. He'll definitely expand on his margin of victory, especially with some of the legislation that he's passed. He can definitely capitalize on that, as well as the fact that he is a moderate Democrat, which the voters of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, moderate Democrat, they re-elected her by 10 points on Tuesday. She's the incumbent governor of Michigan. And now, moving on to Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania elected Senator-elect John Fetterman on Tuesday over Republican Mehmet Oz by around 4 points. And Joe Biden carried the state of Pennsylvania by around a point in 2020. And I believe that in 2024, especially in a rematch against Donald Trump, Joe Biden would probably carry Pennsylvania by around 3 points, which is a lean margin of victory. And now moving on to the Republican lean states, and there's only one in this category, and that would be the state of Texas. Donald Trump carried the state of Texas by around 5 points in 2020. However, I believe with Texas trending more to the Democratic Party, that Joe Biden would only lose the state of Texas in 2024 by around 3 to 4 points. So that is why Texas is a lean Republican state. Once again, it will be competitive, but I believe Republicans still have an edge here. I just believe it's becoming more competitive, and they'll only carry it by around 3 or so points. And now, lastly, moving on to the tilt states, there are 3 of these, and they are all going to the Democratic Party: Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Georgia. Wisconsin and Georgia, Joe Biden both carried by less than a point in 2020. And I believe that in 2024, that will still be the case. I believe he'll carry these states by larger margins than he did in 2020, but I don't see him carrying either of these states by more than a point. I think he carried Georgia by around 0.2 percentage points in 2020, and I believe that in 2024 he might carry it by around 0.5 or 0.6 percentage points. But regardless, Joe Biden will still win the states of Georgia, Wisconsin, and North Carolina. And North Carolina will be the only flip from 2020 to 2024. I believe Joe Biden in 2024 against Donald Trump would flip the state of North Carolina from red to blue. Donald Trump carried the state by a narrow margin of victory in 2020, and I believe Joe Biden would be able to carry the state of North Carolina in 2024, albeit by a margin of victory that is less than 1 point. So, at the end of the day here, and I'm going to categorize all of these as safe to show the final election results here, Joe Biden in 2024, my official prediction is that Joe Biden would defeat Donald Trump 319 electoral votes to 219 electoral votes. Donald Trump would receive 219 electoral votes, and Joe Biden would receive 319 electoral votes, meaning Joe Biden would win the election by 100 electoral votes, being 49 electoral votes over the necessary 270 electoral vote threshold needed to win the presidential election, and Joe Biden would flip the state of North Carolina from red to blue. Donald Trump would not flip any states, and Joe Biden would be reelected as President of the United States. Once again, guys, thank you for watching the video today. I hope you tune in for tomorrow's video. Once again, I'm trying to get back to daily uploads. I am very busy, but I try to find time for this channel. The community we have on this channel is great. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.